of dollars annually to manage. And these are just some of the reasons why there is a need for invasive species management and control. The concept for Partnerships for Regional Invasive Species Management, aka PRISM, stemmed from the recommendations of the Invasive Species Task Force in 2005 to the Governor and Legislature of New York. As you see from the timeline, it wasn't until 2008 that the PRISM network started to develop, becoming fully established in 2013. Funding for the PRISM network is provided by the New York State Environmental Protection Fund. Currently, there are 8 PRISMs that span the entire state of New York. Each PRISM is focused on helping to prevent or minimize the harm caused by invasive species on New York's environment, economy, and the health and well-being of the state's citizens. PRISMs are comprised of principal and cooperative partners that work together to coordinate invasive species management initiatives and strategies, which may vary from PRISM to PRISM. New York is a unique area that holds immense ecological value. It is located near 2 of the Great Lakes, Lake Ontario and Lake Erie, which are part of the largest freshwater body network in the world. The northeastern part of the state encompasses Adirondack Park, which spans 6.1 million acres of land. And central New York contains the Finger Lakes region. And the state is full of beautiful places that hold tremendous ecological value as well as economic wealth. There are many pathways in which invasive species can invade new areas and reduce the health of the ecosystem and the economy. PRISMs offer opportunities to collaborate on invasive species pathways on a statewide and holistic scale to help prevent invasive species from damaging our resources. So these are 7 strategies for invasive species management that can be applied to various management initiatives. It is important to think of prevention as the first line of defense when implementing management strategies against invasives, because once an invasive species is introduced into an area, it is difficult and often costly to manage. Early detection and rapid response are key components to any invasive species management strategy. The PRISM focuses our efforts in what we call priority conservation areas, or PCAs, and highly probable areas, or HPAs, which we will discuss in the next slide. The rest of the strategies include cooperation, information management, control, restoration, and education and outreach. So New York covers over 54,000 square miles, and time and economic resources are limited. Therefore, it is important to prioritize management resources. To do this, the PRISMs focus their efforts at priority conservation areas, or PCAs, which are sites that are considered ecologically important or have conservation value. PRISM has 24 PCAs. There are examples of PCAs in the data table to the left. Note that these examples are of areas that hold high ecological values, such as freshwater systems, mixed forests, dune, and wetland habitats. Efforts are also focused on highly probable areas, also known as HPAs, in which the introduction or spread of invasive species are likely to occur. HPAs include areas where human activities and or site conditions increase the probability of an invasive species becoming established, such as boat launches, fishing hotspots, trailheads, ports, and canalways, which are on the right-hand side in the data table. Management of invasive species involves 3 basic levels of control. Eradication, which is to eliminate all individuals of a target population and or seed bank. This level of control is often not feasible for both technical and financial reasons, and is only considered successful after observing no invasive regrowth after 3 consecutive years. Containment involves reducing or, if possible, completely preventing the dispersal of an already established population into new locations. This method is often used to prevent the spread of an invader into priority conservation areas, which we talked about, when stable populations are known to be nearby or adjacent. And suppression, which reduces the density of a target population below a certain threshold to maintain native species populations or a desired ecological process. This strategy may not necessarily include the total area or boundary of established infestations, and is often used in conjunction with containment and when infestations are widespread or beyond the scope of eradication and rapid response methods. The three basic levels of control can be implemented using different control methods, such as physical control like hand pulling, mechanical control, which involves using machinery, chemical application of insecticides and herbicides and other chemicals, and biological control, which involves the use of a natural predator or competitor to control populations of a target species. And there's an example on the right-hand side of the Gallerusella beetle that eats purple loosestrife. This is a curve graph that generalizes the different control strategies used for invasive species management. The graph indicates that species become harder and more expensive to manage as the abundance of an invasive species in an area increases. Therefore, when possible, prevention is the best management strategy. A useful tool that can provide information and guidance pertaining to invasive plant species management is the Nature's Conservancy's Invasive Plant Management Decision Analysis tool, which is on the bottom of the screen. And it can be found at the IMAP Invasives website, and there's a link there that I can give everybody later if need be. So invasive species prevention is best achieved by increasing the knowledge of a target audience or general public about invasive species identification, as well as their impacts and modes of introduction and various prevention methods. Emphasis should be placed on modes of introduction in highly probable areas where human activity is most likely to cause an introduction of invasive species or increase their spread. I'm sure a lot of you have probably already seen these logos here, the don't dump bait in the water, throw it in the trash, clean, drain, dry, don't move firewood. Those are just some advertising techniques to spread knowledge about invasive species control and prevention. So, according to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, there are about 50,000 exotic species in the U.S. And of that 50,000, 4,300 are considered to be invasive species. In New York State alone, there are 103 invasive plants and 77 invasive animals. To help focus the efforts of an invasive species management strategy, because it's unlikely that we'll be able to go out there and tackle 4,300 different species, it is helpful to create a target list of species that are already in an area that you want to manage and a watch list of species that you're trying to prevent from entering an area. These are the target and watch lists that FLELO Prism has created, and like I mentioned before, these lists are going to be very different in different areas. The lists are tentative and can change depending on need, and today we'll focus on aquatic invasive species. So on the list here it says aquatic species on the left, and there's 3, and then on the right where it says watch prevention, there's aquatic species and there's a list there. Those are the ones we will talk about today. There's lots more. All right, so water chestnut, you probably know a lot about water chestnut already, but just in case. Water chestnut is native to Western Europe, Northeast Asia, and Africa. Initial introduction to North America is thought to have occurred during the 1870s through its cultivation in botanical gardens. From these gardens, water chestnut is thought to have escaped and has since spread throughout the Great Lakes and Finger Lakes, as well as inland lakes and water bodies throughout the northeastern part of North America, as well as Quebec. Water chestnut is an aquatic plant, and unfortunately is not the same plant used in Asian cooking. It bears a rosette of floating leaves at the tip of a submerged and rooted stem. Although it grows best in shallow, nutrient-rich lakes and rivers, it can also grow on wet, murky substrates. The name water chestnut refers to the plant's characteristic fruit, which have a nut-like structure segmented into 4 distinct sections. They are about 1 inch wide and are a greenish-brown color when maturing and black when no longer viable. Each seed can produce 10 to 15 new plants. In turn, each rosette can produce 15 to 20 seeds. Seeds are easily dispersed in water and can remain viable in sediment for 12 years. Unviable nuts turn black and can float to shorelines where they can cause injury to unsuspecting beachgoers. Because of the severity of its impacts, water chestnut has been listed in federal regulations prohibiting its sale and transport. This fast-growing aquatic plant forms large mats that shade out native aquatic vegetation and has the ability to completely dominate surface waters. It reduces oxygen levels for fish and encourages sedimentation by restricting silt movement. Water chestnut is easily spread by plant fragmentation and by seed. It can be removed mechanically and by hand. A commonly used herbicide is clearcast. A number of potential biological control agents were also found in field surveys. The most promising biological control species appear to be the leaf beetle Gallerusella. The potential of subspecies within this genus as a control agent are currently being researched, though. The next species here is Eurasian water milfoil. It is a submerged aquatic plant that is native to Eurasia and northern Africa. It occupies waters 3 to 12 feet deep, growing best in fertile, fine texture, inorganic sediments. It prefers highly disturbed and heavily used nutrient-rich lake beds. It is also found in ponds, slow-moving streams, reservoirs, and estuaries. It is not successful in undisturbed areas where native plants are well established. Eurasian water milfoil is believed to have been accidentally introduced to North America during the late 1800s, with an initial introduction in northeastern parts of the U.S. Eurasian water milfoil is widely distributed throughout the country, as well as regions of Canada. It is listed as a noxious or otherwise restricted plant in 17 states. In New York State, Eurasian water milfoil is classified as prohibited. There are many native milfoil species in North America. Eurasian water milfoil can be identified by a few characteristics. It is a submerged aquatic plant with a terminal leader, and you'll see on the right-hand screen I have arrows pointing to different parts of the plant. The terminal leader is on the top. And that terminal leader for Eurasian water milfoil is a reddish-brown color. And the plant has 4 to 5 leaves with 9 to 21 feathery leaflet pairs whirled around the stem that are limp when out of water, whereas native milfoil species have 5 to 10 leaflet pairs which remain rigid when out of water. So when you're trying to distinguish it between native species, just look for the reddish-colored tip there and the number of leaflet whorls. Eurasian water milfoil has the ability to overwinter and grow rapidly in the spring, blocking out sunlight needed by native plants. It also reduces the biodiversity and abundance of native plants and aquatic wildlife, particularly macroinvertebrate and native fish populations. And loss of such species reduces the ecological value and benefits that aquatic ecosystems have to offer. Although Eurasian water milfoil produces seeds, plant fragmentation is believed to be the most common mode of spread in North America. Milfoil can easily spread to a water body by boats, trailers, and other machinery, as well as water currents. Milfoil is spread over land mostly by human intervention, particularly as a hitchhiker on recreational boats, harvesters, and other aquatic machinery. Hand pulling is the best method for small infestations. Raking is also an option. All plant fragments must be removed from the water and shoreline to prevent spreading the infestation. Benthic barriers, which are sheets of materials attached to a lake bottom, can be used locally around docks and prevent plant growth by blocking sunlight. Aquatic herbicides can be used with permit under strict conditions as well. Milfoil can also be controlled biologically. Researchers have found a native North American weevil that feeds on Eurasian water milfoil, but this method also has mixed results. Okay. So this species is Hemimyces, or bloody red shrimp. They are an invasive crustacean native to freshwater areas in Europe and Western Asia. It has been identified in all of the Great Lakes except for Lake Superior and was likely brought here by the ballast water of ships. The first sighting of this species in Lake Ontario was in 2006. Later that year, the shrimp were found near Oswego, New York. Populations of this species grow quickly and can be found at high densities, about 500 shrimp per cubic meter in some locations. Mature bloody shrimp are 6 to 13 millimeters long with a yellowish or translucent color with red pigmentation on the dorsal and posterior section. A long double-pointed spine is also at their tail. Groups of bloody red shrimp form red-colored swarms along the shadowed edges of piers, boats, or shorelines, which there's a picture on the bottom right. Currently, the impact of bloody red shrimp are not well understood. However, because they feed on plankton and insect larvae, It is believed that bloody red shrimp could cause negative impacts on the native food chain. Specifically, food availability may be reduced for young native fish. Prevention is the best control method and can be implemented by practicing the clean, drain, dry protocol when entering and leaving a new body of water. I'm sure you'll hear a lot about this. Now we're on to the watch or prevention species list. They're highlighted in red. This is Didymo, which is native to Northern Europe and parts of Northern North America. Its introduction is unknown, but it was first discovered in the U.S. in 2005 east of the Mississippi River in Tennessee, and is believed that Didymo was spread by felt-bottom hip waders and fishing gear, as well as by natural water currents. Didymo is a microscopic diatom that has a slimy greenish-brown carpet-like appearance, which you can see from the picture. It's pretty nasty-looking stuff. Didymo forms large mats on bottoms of rivers, streams, and lakes. These mats can grow so large and dense that they destroy critical habitat for fish and their prey species, and they disturb spawning areas as well. In northern New York, Didymo would be particularly disastrous in the Salmon River region, which not only provides the necessary spawning and nesting areas for salmon and other fish, but also serves as a large economic contributor to the local economy. A new research project at the University of Colorado at Boulder has discovered that high water flows greatly decrease the amount of Didymo in the system. This control method is still being researched and is not yet proven, though. To prevent the spread of Didymo, anglers should check, clean, and dry their boots and equipment before entering and leaving a body of water. That's one of the best methods of prevention. So here's a list of popular fishing sites that have been confirmed to have Didymo. Anglers should take extra precaution while fishing at these locations. It is very likely that Didymo is present in other river systems, but has not yet been detected. So do not assume that rivers not listed above are free of infestation. Okay. So there are two different reproductive types of hydrilla. One type has female flowers, while the other has both male and female flowers on the same plant. Hydrilla plants with only female flowers are believed to originate from the Indian subcontinent, whereas hydrilla plants with both female and male flowers are believed to be from Korea. Southern populations are predominantly plants that have only female flowers that overwinter as perennials, whereas populations north of South Carolina, including populations in New York, have both male and female flowers in the same plant that set some fertile seed, but they depend on tubers for overwintering. And there's a picture of the tubers there on the bottom. Hydrilla is a submerged aquatic plant that roots in the bed of a water body. It has long stems that grow up to 25 feet in length that branch at the surface where growth becomes horizontal and forms dense mats. Leaves are small, 2 to 4 millimeters wide and 6 to 20 millimeters long, pointed, often serrated, and arranged around the stem in whorls of 4 to 10. It can be distinguished from its native look-alike, Elodea, which has only 3 leaves per whorl and no serrations, which there's arrows pointing to those distinctions. The top one's the hydrilla. The bottom photo on the right is the Elodea. Hydrilla is one of the world's most worst aquatic invasive plants. It invades deep, dark waters where most native plants can't grow. Its stem can grow up to 1 inch a day, reaching 20 to 30 feet at most. It blocks out sunlight and suppresses native vegetation. Major hydrilla colonies can alter the physical and chemical characteristics of lakes and deter recreational activities and reduce lakeshore property values. The main means of introduction of hydrilla are castaway fragments from recreational boats and trailers. New colonies can often be found near boat ramps. Even very, very small fragments can become the start of new populations. That's why that Clean, Dry, Stop Aquatic Hitchhikers campaign is so important. Boat traffic, though through established populations, can also scatter and spread hydrilla throughout a water body, similar to the spread of Eurasian water milfoil. For the control, mechanical harvesting and herbicide spraying are common control methods of hydrilla. Both are expensive and only moderately effective. Okay, so this is starry stonewort. It is a species of large algae that is native to Europe and Western Asia and was likely introduced to North America in the ballast water of ships. In 1978, it was found in the St. Lawrence River and in the lower South Bay of Oneida Lake in 2005. Starry stonewort has long, variable length, relatively straight branches arranged in whorls that attach at acute angles to stem nodes. It is light green when actively growing. Starry stonewort forms dense mats of vegetation that completely cover lake bottoms. These mats decrease aquatic vegetative biodiversity and can lead to the accumulation of phytotoxins. Furthermore, they act as a favorite substrate for zebra mussels, and we all know how much we like those. Large populations of starry stonewort may have negative impacts on native species that are dependent on lake bottom habitats, such as minnows, log perch, darters, clams, and other invertebrates. Fragments of starry stonewort can be spread between lakes by boats, trailers, and anchors holding sediments. Local dispersal can occur by bulbs or plant fragments being transported by water currents or boats within the lake. Since only male starry stonewort exists in the U.S., no viable seeds are produced. So it's mostly by plant fragmentation. Manual removal of starry stonewort is possible but difficult. It may be impractical on a large scale and requires the removal of bulbs to be successful. And you can see down there the star-shaped bulbs are, well, they're star-shaped. That's where they get their name from, starry stonewort. Herbicide applications may be less effective on tall stands of starry stonewort as chemicals are quickly absorbed into the upper parts of the algae, leaving the lower parts unharmed, and chemical applications require permits. All right, so now we're on to water soldier, which is native to Europe and Northwest Asia. In 2008, the only known population in North America was found in the Trent River of Ontario, Canada. This infestation was likely established by the use of water soldier as an ornamental plant in aquatic gardens. Water soldier is a submerged aquatic plant. It forms large mats of leaves to sit below the water surface. Leaves are 40 centimeters long, sword-shaped, bright green with sharp spines. Flowers are white with 3 petals. Fruit is fleshy, like a fleshy berry containing up to 24 seeds. Water soldier forms dense mats of floating vegetation that displace native aquatic plants and can alter surrounding water chemistry. These mats can also hinder recreational activities such as boating and fishing. Swimmers can become injured with cuts from water soldier's sharp, serrated leaf edges. Stopping the sale and use of water soldier is imperative to preventing its spread. The New Zealand mud snail is native to New Zealand and was introduced to the Great Lakes via ballast water. It was first discovered in Idaho in 1987. Being that a single snail can produce approximately 230 young per year, they have spread rapidly since. Interestingly, all introduced populations in North America are clonal, meaning that they are all genetically identical females. The species can be found in many types of aquatic habitats. They feed on dead and dying plant and animal matter, algae and bacteria. They outcompete other native snail species, reducing biodiversity. Populations can persist at very high densities, which alter nutrient flows, and they have the potential to clog pipes of power and water facilities. Best control is prevention by keeping boats and equipment clean, and use of trematode parasites have been used as a biological control agent against these New Zealand mud snails as well. Native to Asia, Asian clams were likely introduced to the west coast of North America around 1930. Initially assumed to have been imported as a food source for the immigrating Chinese population, or it may have come in with the importation of the giant Pacific oyster, also from Asia. Live Asian clams were first detected in U.S. waters in 1938 in the Columbia River in Washington. The species quickly spread across the continent and are currently found in 44 states. In New York State, shells of the Asian clam have been collected in the running waters of central and western portions of the state. Asian clam have a small light brown to yellow colored bivalve with distinctive radial lines and brown to purple colored radial bands on the underside of the shell, which you can see from the picture. Asian clam is notorious as a biofouler of electrical and nuclear power plants and industrial water systems. It has also been documented to cause problems in irrigation canals, pipes, and drinking water supplies. In addition, it alters water body substrates and competes with native species for resources. The exact mechanism for secondary dispersal of Asian clam throughout North America is unknown, but likely involves human activity, including bait bucket introductions, accidental introductions associated with imported aquaculture species, and intentional introductions by people who buy them as a food item in markets. Furthermore, larval clams can attach to vegetation and floating debris for long-distance dispersal. Prevention of the transport of Asian clam is the most effective control method. Mollusks can be removed from piping by pressurized washing, and molluscicides and benthic barriers can also be effective. So, the rusty crayfish are an aggressive species with the ability to alter the aquatic food chain in non-native ecosystems. Thought to be native to the Ohio River Basin, the rusty crayfish was likely introduced by fishermen who dumped their leftover bait into waterways. Rusty crayfish look similar to native crayfish, but can be identified by more robust claws and by dark rusty spots on each side of their carapace or shell, which there's an arrow pointing at the top picture there of the red part there on their shell. They outcompete native crayfish species for food and disrupt the entire aquatic food web. They also reduce plant abundance and diversity, which reduces the available habitat for fish, ducks, and young game fish that rely on submerged aquatic plants for food, shelter, and spawning. To prevent the spread of rusty crayfish, it's best to just purchase native bait and to not throw any unused bait in the water, but to throw it in trash. That's the best prevention method that you can tell people. So native to Asia, there are 3 species of Asian carp that are considered invasive and a threat to the Great Lakes. And that's the bighead, the silver, and the grass carp, which are all listed here on the right with pictures. Asian carp were originally imported into the southern United States in the 1970s as an inexpensive food source and as a biological control for algae and aquatic facilities. Natural flooding allowed their escape, and now they are found in 12 states throughout the U.S., as well as in the Mississippi River Basin and the Illinois River system. Bighead and silver carp are currently in the Illinois River, which is connected to the Great Lakes via the Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal. There currently is an electrical barrier in place in the canal to help prevent their introduction to the Great Lakes region. Asian carp are large, weighing 60 to 110 pounds. They have low-set eyes below the mouth and large upturned mouths without barbels. Asian carp are voracious eaters. They consume plankton, algae, and other microscopic organisms, stripping the food web of a primary food source for small and big fish. Silver carp can injure boaters because they jump out of the water when startled. Because adult Asian carp have no natural predators in North America and females lay approximately 500,000 eggs each time they spawn, it is crucial to prevent Asian carp from entering the Great Lakes. Once established in an ecosystem, they are virtually impossible to eradicate. And I actually have a short video if there's time. Brittany, is there time?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Hang on, I gotta turn this up somehow. I hope everybody can hear that.
This is what happens when a particular population of fish in the Illinois River is startled.
Yeah, go right around that track. Behind the boat, wow. Watch out, they're everywhere.
These are silver carp, the most notorious of the Asian carp family. Many believe the Illinois River has the densest population of silver carp in the nation.
Kind of ground zero on this invasion.
Asian carp were introduced to the United States in the 1970s to control algae in catfish farms in the South. In the 1980s, floodwaters allowed the carp to escape and infest the Mississippi River basin.
When it comes to the river systems, if it's connected, if it's got a direct connection to the Mississippi or the Illinois River, it's going to have these fish in it.
Asian carp not only disrupt the food chain, push out native fish, are a nuisance to boaters, but they are also extremely dangerous.
Yeah, this is about an average-sized silver carp. This is one that can hurt you when it jumps. If your boat's going 20, 30 miles an hour and this guy hits you, it's going to leave a mark.
It was a flying silver carp that broke this woman's jaw as she participated in a sport created for the sole purpose of hunting this nuisance fish. Their population is growing at a rapid pace. The females can lay 2 million eggs a year, and they grow rapidly.
Once they get to a certain size, we don't have a predator that's capable of eating them, and they're just running unchecked.
So how do we get rid of them? Some say if you can't feed them, eat them. They believe that creating an appetite for silver carp will hold their population in check.
The vision about all this is to literally educate our people how to eat this fish.
But getting Americans to eat silver carp has been challenging.
People in this country just don't seem to want to pick around the bones. The biggest problem with these fish are that the fillets are filled with bones.
Now there is concern that Asian carp have a path out of the rivers and into the Great Lakes through the Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal. So a multi-million-dollar electronic barrier has been constructed to potentially stop the migration.
With the barriers in place, we are effectively plugging the biggest hole for the movement of these fish. It would be very difficult for fish to just swim right through this waterway behind us.
But not everyone is convinced. So cleaning, training, and drying boats every time they come out of the water can prevent the tiny microscopic creatures who lurk there from ending up in lakes and rivers where they shouldn't call home. It's the best defense we have against the ever-growing world of the silent invaders.
Dun, dun, dun. Oh, quiet. All right, so that's it for my presentation today. This slide just has different websites that you can go to for more information about what was discussed today. My contact information is at the bottom, my email right there. Feel free to email me with any questions, or we can chat right now with questions too once I get back to the screen. How do I get back to the screen? I seem to be lost here.
I'm sharing your screen at the top.
Oh, thank you. I was like, where did it go? How do I get back to? Ah, there we go.
All right, thank you, Megan. We are now going to begin answering questions that were submitted during your presentation. As a reminder to everybody who is still here, you can still submit questions through the chat box. We've only had a few, or if you have a question that you'd like to ask, feel free to raise your hand and go ahead and I will unmute you so you can ask your question. Megan, the first question that I have for you today is, do you know if cold weather temperatures affect hydrilla growth in populations?
That's something I'd have to research a little bit more to answer, which I'm willing to do and actually curious myself, but I can't answer like right off the top of my head right now.
Okay. All right, so the next question is, are there any native carp to North America?
Native carps. I'm not really sure.
I can go ahead and answer that for you. So there are actually not any native carp to North America. There are 7 species that are in North America, but all of them are non-native. Megan, can you see the next question in the chat box?
Fern, mosquito fern in it. Yes. Can I talk about mosquito fern? that's not something that, unfortunately, like the target species and the watch list species that I showed earlier, those are more of the species that I know about because they're in my prism or they're a watch list for my prism. So unfortunately, the mosquito fern hasn't been a concern of ours yet, so I haven't really been able to learn about it. But I'm writing it down and I will learn about it because I don't know about it now.
All right. Does anybody else have any other questions that they have for Megan today? All right. Well, thank you, Megan, for your presentation, and thank you, everybody, for attending today's webinar on identification, impacts, prevention, and control of aquatic invasive species. If you have any other questions, please feel free to contact Megan. Her email address is Megan, M-E-G-A-N, .pistolese, P-I-S-T-O-L-E-S-E, @tnc.org. I will go ahead and send that in the chat group to everybody. Following this webinar today, you guys will be receiving an email with a link to today's recording, the PDF of the presentation slides, and as well as an evaluation asking for feedback on this session. Your insights are very helpful to shape the future of events such like this. On behalf of New York Sea Grant and the Watercraft Inspection Planning Team and our presenter today, thank you for joining us. We hope to help you guys out in the future with your watercraft inspection programs. Please tune in next week at 9 a.m. on Thursday morning, November 5th, for presentations on how to start a watercraft inspection program and standardized watercraft inspection data collection. We hope that you found this information and dialogue valuable, and have a great rest of your day. We'll keep the chat box open, so if anyone has any further questions, we can stick around for a few more minutes, and I look forward to speaking with you all next week. Thanks again for joining.